speak on 3 points. The first part will be a bit longer on prime ministerial power in Malaysia. The second part will be on what we actually what will we expecting, and on 25th of June we were expecting several bigger changes. Who we expect to be dropped and who we thought would be included. The third part will be on what I would call the new Chinese Cabinet. I will comment on the various portfolio of the new Chinese Cabinet. Do you call it Cabinet or Cabinet? Cabinet. So the new Chinese Cabinet. I'll comment on that later. So the first part I want to talk about the power of prime ministerial or the prime ministerial power in this country. Let me put this: the Prime Minister of Malaysia is more powerful than the man occupying the White House in relation to his own country's institution. So in relation to the Congress, actually Obama is actually quite powerless. As we can see, he's increasingly at the left guard. His budget was blocked. Government had to shut down for a while. He could not push through his legislation. But in Malaysia, in relation to the Parliament, the Malaysian Prime Minister is all powerful because he doesn't even have to appear in the Parliament. He can act like the US President. The US President doesn't go to the Congress. So the Malaysian Prime Minister acts as if he's the US President without having to go to Parliament. When his duty is to the Parliament. If you ever attend Westminster sitting, you will know that on every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, the British Prime Minister will go to Parliament, will handle what you call Prime Ministerial question time for half an hour. And I happened to have the opportunity, that half an hour he could answer 26 questions when I was there. I was there in early December last year and attended the Prime Minister's question time. The way they speak was really fast, sharp, and quick. Here in Parliament, you can spend 25 minutes to answer one question. And usually the Prime Minister do not come. The Prime Minister comes once in a while, once in the blue moon, every session will come in once, probably 3 times a year. That's about it. And every year you come to present budget, and that's where I will touch on, which Chin Tong preempted. I have stories to tell about finance ministers and all this. So the Prime Minister is extremely powerful in this country. He runs a huge inner cabinet, which has been discussed, the Prime Minister Department. The Prime Minister Department started as a very small institution. It was a very small institution back in Tunku's time. It was not big during Razak's time, but it was expanded during Mahathir's time, and it was further expanded, especially in 2008. In 2008, the Prime Ministerial budget in 2008, what they call the management budget was 3.4 billion for 2008. The development budget was 3.6 billion ringgit. So all in 7 billion for the Prime Minister Department. That was in 2008. Back in 2005, the Prime Minister Department has a management budget of 1.9 billion and 2.6 billion for development. That was in 2005. That means 1.9 plus 2.6, 4.5. 2.6 plus 1.9. 4.5. Sorry, that's mathematics. AB cannot count. In 2009, there was a major change. In 2009, the Prime Ministerial budget, as far as management is concerned, was 3.6, not much different from 2008. But in terms of development funds of the Prime Minister Department, it was increased from 3.66 in 2008 to 10.28 billion in 2009. What actually happened? Between 2008 and 2009, what actually happened? I think 2 things happened. One, 8th of March 2008, where 5 states 5 states were captured by Pakistan to September 16. Now, September 16 was a real threat for a while until they shipped everyone to Taiwan. But it was a real threat because suddenly Barisan Nasional felt that the government could fall. The government could fall. And therefore, the Prime Minister increased his discretional budget. Now, let me use the word discretional again, because in all budget items that is already budgeted, you can only use it for a certain purpose. So every year, there is what they call a budget session, and each item is mentioned in Parliament. So you can only use it for that purpose, although most of the purposes are widely defined, but yet you cannot use something for the toilet to use it for your bedroom. There is a distinction between what can be used in what situation. But as far as discretional budget is concerned, you can do it in whatever way you want to do. You can use it in whatever way you want to use. Discretion. So you can use it as you wish. What happened was after 2008, after the election in 2008, after September 16, the government wanted, or the Prime Minister wanted a lot more money in his own hand, or within his control. The Prime Minister refused to share power even among Cabinet. Even within the Cabinet, he finds it difficult to share power, and therefore more money has to be concentrated, or more resources has to be concentrated in the hands of the Prime Minister. And therefore, you can see that shift, that Prime Minister has a lot more resources in his hand and in the Prime Minister Department after 2008. But even before that, we have already had a huge Prime Minister Department. You compare with other countries, the Prime Minister Department usually do not have a minister, or usually have a minister assisting the Prime Minister, and that's about it. Or sometimes as a junior minister, a deputy minister, an assistant minister assisting the Prime Minister, and that's about it. But we have this big institution that is called Prime Minister Department. The first time I visited Putrajaya was in 2000. The government moved in 1999. When I first visited Putrajaya in early 2000, that was the first round of relocation. It was only the Prime Minister Department that was relocated. So I arrived at the building, Bangunan Perdana Putra, and I thought, oh, this is the Prime Minister Department. Not knowing that the next door was also Prime Minister Department. There was another building that was also Prime Minister Department, and today the Prime Minister Department employs about 50,000 people. It occupies about 15%, 15% of the national budget, which before 2008 it was only about 5%. Before 2009, that means 2008 and earlier period, it only took about 5% of the national budget. But from 2009 onwards, Prime Minister Department takes about 15%, averagely about 15% of the budget, of national budget. And most of the money that is given to the Prime Minister Department are discretional. That means today, Najib says he wants to use this amount of money. He can, as long as he signs it, he can get it. And what is the consequence? The consequence is that you will get a lot more shoddy projects in Sabah and Sarawak that is eventually disappearing into the sea. And you don't know where the money goes, because these are, you will have all sorts of items. And you want, apart from shoddy projects, you will also have a lot of you help me, I help you type of immediate grant, where they can, the Prime Minister say, I'm here, I'll give some money, I'll give you 5 million. Those things do not happen 40 years ago. 40 years ago, the Prime Minister cannot go to a place and say, okay, now I got inspiration, other inspiration. Okay, I'll give you 5 million. Those things do not happen previously. Previously, I had the opportunity to speak to Tunku Razak. I moved to my start point on Finance Minister post. I had the opportunity to speak to Tunku Razak. And Tunku Razak, I think one day we should get people like Tunku Tunku Razak to talk about their ministerial experience. Forget about their politics, get them to talk about their ministerial experience. People like Michael Chen, I had an opportunity to bump into Michael Chen at a wake, and we talked to him. I talked to him for half an hour. For those who don't know Michael Chen was a minister. He was an assistant minister in the 60s and a minister in the 70s. Now, those are, I think they are a different breed. Tunku Razak told us this. When he was finance minister, he was like a class monitor. I remember Kosubun, when he was appointed as Prime Minister, they said he was a class monitor. At the end, I don't think he managed to monitor anyone. But Tunku Razak said that he was a class monitor, where every other minister has to come to the finance minister to explain each of their finance item, each of their budget item. And those days, according to Tunku Razak, ministers do not have discretional allocation. Today, ministers have discretional allocation. That means today, in each of the ministry, the minister also have a sum of money, depending on whether he is close to the Prime Minister. If he is a strong minister, he will have a lot more discretional money where he can distribute as long as he signs and as long as the what they call KSU, the Secretary General, agrees. But those days, ministers do not have discretional power. They have no discretional power. Any additional spending must be approved by the finance minister. And every budget item must be approved by the finance minister before it's presented to the cabinet. Now today, of course, budget items still go through the finance minister, but the problem is today we have the finance minister and the prime minister being the same person. In our history, we have Liew Chin Tong as the first finance minister, then we have Tun Tan Siew Sin. Hu Sin On was once a very short-term finance minister, and after that, Siew Sin came back. After Siew Sin, it was Razak. After Razak, it was Tun Dayen. Then it was Anwar Ibrahim. Mahathir found a very serious problem when he was running the country for too long. For those who have heard my Chinese talk, you've heard it many times. But this is perhaps my first time saying it in English. I'm not sure whether I've said it in English before. So when Mahathir ran his government, he found it very difficult because he had problem with all his finance ministers. He had problem with Tunku Razak. Tunku Razak was demoted to become Minister of Trade after the 1984 UMNO election. Now, eventually, both Razak and Musa told the story. It was after the UMNO election when Musa defeated Razak second time. Musa defeated Razak in 1981 and 1984 at the UMNO election. So, Mahathir promised Musa that he would drop Tunku Razak entirely from the cabinet, but at the end, Mahathir didn't drop Tunku Razak. He demoted Razak to become Minister of Trade in 1984. And he brought in Tun Dayen. Tun Dayen was from the private sector, a close friend of Mahathir. He was brought into the cabinet and occupied this very important position. But Mahathir actually also had problem with Dayen, but that was a later problem. That happened in June 2000. Of course, the third finance minister Mahathir had was Anwar Ibrahim. And we all knew the history, we all knew what happened. The only finance minister Mahathir had no problem with was called Dr. Mahathir. Because he became finance minister. He became finance minister after Anwar was sacked for a short moment. Then he appointed Dayen back to the cabinet, and Dayen occupied the finance ministry until June 2000. By June 2000, Mahathir felt that he has secured his power. He has somehow consolidated his power, and he had also problem with Dayen, and therefore Dayen was asked to go in a very mysterious way. I'm told that they're still friends, but I'm still hoping that Dayen will tell what happened in June 2000, because we have no idea what actually happened between Mahathir and Dayen, what actually happened that resulted in Dayen leaving the cabinet. From 2000 onwards until the day Mahathir resigned as Prime Minister, stepped down as Prime Minister on 31st of October 2003. Mahathir was Finance Minister. And after that, the entire period of Tun Abdullah Badawi, except from the day Abdullah took over until September 2008, Abdullah Badawi was Finance Minister, as well. But there was a switch. After September 16, on 17th of September, there was no change of government, but there was a change of Finance Minister. On September 17, 2008, Muhyiddin and Najib went to see Abdullah Badawi. And the concession they got from Abdullah Badawi was Abdullah Badawi would switch portfolio with Najib. So Najib became Finance Minister and Abdullah Badawi took over from him the Defense Ministry. Sensing or tasted blood, a week later, on the 25th of September, Najib and Muhyiddin went to see Abdullah Badawi again and forced Abdullah Badawi to leave office by April the following year. So, for the large part of the last decade or so, last 14, 15 years, effectively the Prime Minister was also the Finance Minister. And there is a problem, because how can the person who is supposed to spend money, the Prime Minister, the role of the Prime Minister is to spend money. The role of the Prime Minister is supposed to spend money, is supposed to govern, is supposed to make things happen. That is the role of the Prime Minister. But the role of the Finance Minister is to guard the purse. So you must have a split personality to be able to do that job. You must have a split personality to be both Prime Minister and a Finance Minister, because their function, their roles, the expected requirement of those positions are totally different. And this is the problem that we have. So I think first thing first, whatever happened in the next cabinet reshuffle, which I don't know when, the most important thing is to split the job, is to allow a senior minister to occupy the position of Finance Minister, so to exercise some form of control or some form of internal, intra-cabinet check and balance. And that I think should happen. And given that we are facing a very serious economic problem in the months and years to come, with Bank Negara raising interest rate today by 0.25, I think we need a full-time Finance Minister. We need someone who really understands the economy, who are prepared to spend time to steer the economy, to spend time to deal with various issues in the economy to run the Finance Ministry. Now, coming back to the office of Finance Minister, why this is important? Because the British Cabinet is not the US presidency. The British Cabinet is basically, they call it first among equal. The Prime Minister is supposed to be a chairman. The Prime Minister is supposed to be a chairman and not a president. There is a difference. The DAP has no president, the DAP has chairman, whereas the other party is president. In the presidential system, you elect the president. In the presidential system, you elect the president. In the parliamentary system, you elect a bunch of parliamentarians, and from among whom they elect the top leaders. But in the parliamentary system, you are supposed to be both colleague and also subtly competitors. You are also supposed to be successor in many ways within the parliamentary system. So in the cabinet, it is both a training ground, but it can also be a place for, they call it party room revolution. You are supposed to be able, any other minister within the cabinet room is supposed to be able to replace the Prime Minister if the Prime Minister suddenly dropped dead. Or suddenly anything happened to the Prime Minister, or if the Prime Minister suddenly resigned, there must be a second man who can replace him immediately. And that is the role of the cabinet, where there should be check and balance within the cabinet. There should be what they call dialogue, there should be cooperation, there should be competition. That happened in the cabinet room, and this is not happening. This is not happening because we have a huge Prime Minister Department, as I said earlier. Now, within the Prime Minister Department, there are so many agencies fighting among themselves. We used to have 5 ministers before the last election in the Prime Minister Department. Today we have 10 ministers in the Prime Minister Department. But more importantly, even within the Prime Minister Department, agencies are fighting within the Prime Minister Department. You have EPU competing with Pemandu. The most important unit used to be EPU. EPU is supposed to handle all what they call approval of big projects, manage the various economic projection, handle privatization. But today, you have Pemandu trying to compete with EPU. People are very unhappy with Pemandu because they are established as a company. Pemandu is established as a company and not a government department. Therefore, Pemandu staff can be paid much higher. Some Pemandu staff receive 3-4 times the salary of a senior civil servant because it's set up as a company. So, Pemandu is competing with EPU. And there is something called UCAS. UCAS is the privatization unit. I can't remember the exact name of the UCAS. Unit Kerjasama Awam Swasta. Public-Private Partnership PPP unit. UCAS now handle privatization project. And they also cannibalize the power that EPU used to have. So within the Prime Minister Department, there are many other agencies. I'm not good at using PowerPoint, so I decided not to use any PowerPoint. I would rather just speak and tell stories. So I decided not to use any PowerPoint. But I will probably upload some of those things onto my Facebook in the days to come. There are many other agencies which play very similar functions within the Prime Minister Department. You have Teraju, which is supposed to take care of Bumi Putra development. You have Talent Corp. You have ICU. You see, the name is very interesting. We have ICU. ICU macam dalam hospital. And then we have Mampu. Mampu is also supposed to improve the government's efficiency. ICU is supposed to coordinate project. Mampu sounds like Viagra. So these are the problems. These are the competition within the Prime Minister Department, interagency competition. But the other problem is today, not only that you have a strong Prime Minister Department that is cannibalizing the functions of other ministries, you also have something called National Economic Council. National Economic Council was formed after 2008. After 2008, there was the inner economic cabinet. Now, our friend Dr. Lau talked about the cabinet meeting on Wednesday. I would say, as far as economic matters is concerned, Wednesday is irrelevant. It's Monday now. Monday, the National Economic Council meets. What does the National Economic Council does? What does the Economic Council handle? Economic Council is formed by key senior ministers who deals with finance, economic, and other economic-related matters, and they approve projects, they approve economic decision, and after they approve it on Monday, they hand it to Cabinet on Wednesday to rubber stamp. So all economic decisions are now made at the Economic Council, deliberated at the Economic Council, without Cabinet deliberating it. Cabinet serves as a rubber stamp. Not only Parliament serves as a rubber stamp now, Cabinet is also a rubber stamp as far as economic matters is concerned. Now in governance, if you don't talk about economics, what do you talk about? You go to Cabinet talk about another issue. Actually, those are non-issues. I mean, those are not the key issue. When it comes to governance, it's about the daily life of ordinary Malaysians. It's about your transport, it's about how these transport matters like oil, petrol will affect the economy, how to improve, how to deal with housing, how to deal with various implementation. The most important function of a modern government is economic. So if the cabinet doesn't deal with economic matters, why do you need a cabinet? For Huat to be the cabinet. So I think this is a problem that we are facing in our current setup, where prime ministerial power is hugely expanded, and we need to check that. We need to check that. We need to give cabinet meaningful role. Otherwise, might as well if you close down the cabinet and they don't have to meet. They're just like parliament. You go to parliament to shout, and then you don't get any chance to deal with real issues. Now, parliament. The problem with our parliament is that it is treated as a rubber stamp. It's treated as a rubber stamp. There is no opportunity for parliamentarians to participate in policy making. In other countries, there are cabinet committees, there are parliamentary committees. In the parliamentary committees, you deal with real issues. Bipartisan, you have both sides, and you deal with, for instance, there is parliamentary committee on transport. There is parliamentary committee on finances. There is, say for instance, cabinet committee on defense. That's when members of both sides learn how to govern. Members of both sides are given private briefing, closed door briefing. Both sides can call civil servants to testify. They can understand the governance of the country in a deeper way. And they can prepare themselves one day to be minister effectively. Today, backbenchers from Barisan Nasional has nothing to do. If they are on good terms with the Prime Minister, they will be appointed as chairman of GLC. If they are not on good terms with the Prime Minister, their life is like another opposition member. So you have to be on good terms with the Prime Minister in order to be appointed as chairman of GLC, and from there you get your business class declared, you get your secretary, you get your private government car, company car from GLCs, you get all the perks from the GLC, you pay your assistant from the GLC. What should happen is, now when Ram from Malaysian Cabinet wrote the article about 10 million, I told him, I say, to me, it's not a problem of pay. We should pay our minister more. We should pay our minister a lot more. But we should scrutinize them a lot more also. We should give our minister more assistance. Today, minister get 5 or 6 assistants, and that's about it. They get a press secretary, press is very important. They get a private secretary to handle their schedule because they need to appear at the function on time. They get what they call a political secretary to represent them in their kawasan. That is important. But they don't get enough people to help them do policy making. They don't have policy advisor. All advisor comes from ministry, if there is any. But they don't actually get enough staff in the ministry, in their private office. So I actually call for higher pay for the minister, and also a lot more staff for the minister, but we must scrutinize them. We must scrutinize them, they must come to parliament, they must report to parliamentary committee, there should be ministerial parliamentary committee, and they should appear. They should appear in the ministerial committee. They should be responsive, very responsive to the parliament, and that is something that we should think about. So I think that's my first part, but the third part will be Reshuffle. The second part is that what were we expecting for this cabinet reshuffle? I think we were expecting a new finance minister. There were people talking about Hisham becoming the new finance minister. I was shown a poll, and Hisham is suddenly very popular in this country. When there's disaster, some people profit from it. So Hisham is more popular now among the ruling crowd compared to other UMNO vice presidents. So I guess Najib was thinking about succession. Najib was thinking about giving Hisham the finance ministry. And there were talks about Muhyiddin retiring. Every now and then, everyone talks about Muhyiddin retiring. And I think there is seriously a fight, but we don't know what exactly happened. And then I was expecting the foreign minister to go. I was expecting Anifah Aman to take some portfolio because in this country, the foreign minister thought that the capital is Kota Kinabalu and not Kuala Lumpur. Foreign minister doesn't run foreign policy. Foreign policy is being run from Prime Minister Department and not from the Foreign Ministry. Foreign Ministry is being treated as a management unit of embassies' houses. And this is not something that we should do. We are a very important country, very important small country, where we can punch above our weight, and in our history, we have always punched above our weight. In the Malaysian history, we have always punched above our weight in terms of influencing regional policies. And today, Southeast Asia is such an important global hotspot, global area of concern, where we must act, we must be able to manage it, we must be able to manage foreign policy and not foreign embassies. Not embassies, houses, and you're not there to manage houses. You're not there to give contract to your siblings or to your cronies so that they can repair the embassies in Korea or embassy somewhere. The role of a minister is not to manage contracts. But unfortunately, this country has descended to such a level where every minister are there to manage contract. And why, say for instance, in UK, the great officers of government, there are 4 important positions which are called the great officers of state. Prime Minister Office, the Chancellor of Exchequer, which is the Finance Minister for UK, the Foreign Affairs, and Home Affairs, Home Secretary, Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary. These are the 4 most important officers in the UK government. In Malaysia, why no one wants to take Foreign Ministry? Because there's no contract in Foreign Ministry. I'm serious. I'm serious. Ministers are interested in contracts. Home Minister are most interested in building police station, police headquarters. And the KPI of a Home Minister is not how to curb crime. The KPI of a Home Minister for himself is how many new police headquarters in the district that he builds. And this is the problem. Everyone is a contractor. Everyone wants to be a contractor, and every minister are put there to manage contract. So I was expecting Hassan Malik to go, given that he's not performing. He also has scandal, financial scandal, bank rakyat. I was expecting Tunku Anand to go. And I think many people expect him to go, and now more people want him to go. I think after the Prime Minister visit to Sok Kin Chen, I think Tunku Anand should just resign. In fact, there's no need to have Federal Territory Ministry. And for a long time, we do not have an FT ministry, but just to create a job for someone, we have FT ministry. In fact, what should happen is that we should have a state government in Kuala Lumpur. We should have a state government in Kuala Lumpur. So that Kuala Lumpur can elect its own state government, elect its own either mayor or chief minister. And it's big enough. Kuala Lumpur has 10 times more population than Perlis. Kuala Lumpur has a budget that is more than any other state government in the peninsula. Sabah has a budget of 4 billion. Sarawak has a budget of 4.5 billion. All other states in peninsula has a budget of less than 2 billion ringgit. DBKL has a budget of 2.5 billion ringgit. So DBKL's budget is more than all the state government, not put together, I mean each of their budget, more than all the budget of all state government. So there is a need for something, a new structure in KL. But anyway, what happened was basically it was just a cabinet expansion, as pointed out by earlier speaker, and it only shows that the Prime Minister, when he talks about Germany and Brazil, I think he's on the Brazil side. There is no leadership. There was no readiness to change ministers from UMNO. There was no cabinet reshuffle in UMNO. There's only cabinet expansion to include new Chinese capital without actually changing David Woods from UMNO. Now I say that I hope good UMNO new generation UMNO ministers to rise. Now, I think many people are expecting Kyrie to be given a promotion. I think many people were hoping that some of the 40-year-old generation in UMNO can be given ministerial position. And that will strengthen UMNO definitely. Of course, from the Pakatan point of view, many people say, oh, why should we strengthen UMNO? But you want good ministers to run the country, because that will push everyone to compete for good reason, and not to compete to be who is the less worst minister. You want minister to compete to be a better minister, and you want coalition both sides to compete so that we can actually have a better nation. So I was expecting quite a few people in UMNO. I thought they would be given minister or deputy minister posts in UMNO. Many of them are in their early 40s. UMNO do have, at least I would say, if they want to select 5 good 40-year-old generation, they do have. And they do have, say, 5 or 6 good second liner 40-year-old generation. And that generation, if they are given adequate support within the party, UMNO can be a better party. UMNO doesn't have to be this gangster party. I don't want UMNO not becoming a gangster party. I think UMNO should be, UMNO do have good people, some of them. And they should be given ministerial posts, not this uncle, Toko Adlan. Finally, the final part of my talk will be on the Chinese capital. 3 Chinese capital was appointed. Why I call it Chinese capital? Because, especially for Wee Ka Siong, it was designed for a Chinese capital. And the whole idea is that you need Chinese minister in the cabinet so that they can speak for us. Don't believe in those sort of things. If you are a Malay minister, you are an Indian minister, and I used to remember Sami Lalu being sometimes being very good at speaking for the Chinese. And then we have already gone past racial politics. I believe that for many elections, voters were voting for or against Mahathir, and not for or against MCA, or Gerakan for that matter. 1990 election was against Dr. Mahathir. 1995 election, the Chinese voted for Mahathir and his policies. It was no longer about Chinese Malay, it was about leadership. And when we talk about cabinet, I think it's not about racial representation. The days of racial representation has gone. It is about leadership. And I think the problem with this cabinet reshuffle is that it was taught in the, what they call, I always say Najib has a problem. Najib thought that he was Tun Razak, but he's not. Najib thought that he was, this is 1970, so he's appointing Michael Chen as minister in charge of Chinese New Village. Michael Chen was appointed as minister without portfolio, responsible for New Village. Michael Chen is now 82 years old. I just saw him last month. And Tun Razak has passed away long ago. Najib still thinks that this is like 1970s, you have to appoint a minister responsible for Chinese affairs. I think this is, the day has gone. So, the problem with this appointment is, for instance, Transport Ministry. Transport Ministry doesn't run transport. When I was very young, when I was a kid, I lived in Subang Jaya, I studied Klang, I studied BJ before I studied Kacang. Every time when I was in the bus, I say, well, this transport minister at that time was announcing, the transport minister doesn't know how to run transport. It's so easy to fix the bus system, to fix the buses. As a kid, I thought I know how to fix the buses. Then only as I grow older, that I discovered that transport minister doesn't run public transport. Public transport is not within the transport ministry. Public transport was previously under the entrepreneur ministry and is now within the Prime Minister department. Why? Because this allowed UMNO politicians to give out licenses. That's all. Public transport is not within the transport ministry. Then later on I found out that actually the transport minister is only responsible for air control tower via DCA, Department of Civil Aviation. Airport is not under the Transport Minister. Apart from the air tower part, the air control part. Airport is under Malaysia Airport Holdings Berhad within the Finance Ministry. Then when I was in Penang as MP in Penang, I discovered that Transport Minister doesn't run port. The Penang Port Commission, PPC, is still a is the Transport Ministry agency. PPC usually is headed by an MCA appointee, but this time the Prime Minister appointed Chancellor before he appointed Liew Chin Tong. So the current PPC, Penang Port Commission Chairman, is still Chancellor, but Minister is Liew Chin Tong. But Penang Port Commission has only about 100 staff. The Penang Port Sdn Bhd has about 3,000 staff. The Penang Port Sdn Bhd actually runs the port. The Penang Port Sdn Bhd is a company within the Finance Ministry and headed by Penang UMNO politician. But of course, all these are gone because Syed Mokhtar is coming into Penang. He is taking over even from the UMNO junior leader in Penang. Syed Mokhtar comes in, everything's up. So we are having a situation where we have ministers who have no political role or no governing role. Transport Minister is there for show. And of course, since Dr. Lau is here, I don't comment too much about Liew Chin Tong. But I just discovered that Liew Chin Tong is supposed to be responsible for initially was saying Hindu affairs. Initially was reported Hindu endowment. Later on, I found out that someone said it is for Hindu Sangam. The last time I checked, Hindu Sangam was an NGO, not a government body. Anyway, I have no problem with the minister responsible for affairs of other ethnic group. I have no problem with that. But the problem is, there is no such agency called Hindu Endowment Board at the federal level. And Hindu Sangam is an NGO, it's not a government body. So, ultimately, what are ministers for? Now we are asking a question, the ultimate question is, what are ministers for? Why do we need ministers? We need ministers to exercise political leadership in the government. And if we don't need ministers, we can just say, oh, civil servant can run it. Then we don't need ministers. But we need ministers because at the end of the day, you need politicians to connect the civil service with the people. The politicians are there to shape policy and let the policy to be implemented by the civil servant. There is, of course, everywhere in the world say that politicians are useless. But everywhere there are politicians. Why? Because in all society you need politicians, you need good political leaders to exercise political leadership and to shape policy for the people and to let civil service implement. Now, if you have no agency, then if you don't run a proper ministry, then there's no need for minister. So I think this cabinet expansion or exercise is incomplete. We are waiting for another round of UMNO cabinet reshuffle after UMNO cabinet assembly, if it ever happened. And I think this is something that we are left with. I try not to comment too much about what happened on 25th of June, because I think whoever is appointed, I pity them, I share their pain, but I think the more important thing is we actually need to reconfigure how we govern this country. We need to change we need to constrain prime ministerial power, we need to reinstate the strength of parliament to check the prime minister and check the government. We need to reinstate cabinet as the most important governing institution and give cabinet its meaningful role. And I think these are the things that we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liew, for sharing your insights. perhaps you can tell us where you're from, and we welcome your questions. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. It's not a big hall anyway, and someone will bring a mic to you.
Thank you. My name is Liew Chin Tong for short. I'll take it as a member of speaking as a member of civil society. First of all, I think the presentations have been quite detailed, perhaps much more so than we may have expected, certainly more detailed than I would have expected, because the topic is supposed to be the so-called reshuffle and ministerial effectiveness. But I think the event has turned out to be more of, is our cabinet effective? Is the Malaysian cabinet system effective? And from all presentations and comments made, and what has been in the press over the past few months, there's a direct indictment that our Malaysian government has not been effective in many, many ways. I'm not going to go into specific details and so on, but the issue is not a question of number of ministers or number of ministries, but how effectively the scope of authority and responsibility and roles are defined. And this is a very glaring example because unfortunately I myself have been involved in certain government works. There are multiple ministries overlapping the functions, so nobody knows where the boundary is and nobody wants to take a step in positive action. So multiple policies come around, and recently the issue came out, and I must admit Malaysian experts, civil servants, academicians and others are able to formulate very good comprehensive policies. But the politicians are unwilling to implement them because they are too good. A glaring example was a recent issue of traffic in persons. The United States has downgraded Malaysia to Tier 3, that's the lowest rank. We had 2 years of exemptions because we had a good documented policy of what we were going to do it. But without having done anything, they downgraded us. There are a lot of other government policies which are self-contradictory. Specific issues that I know about: renewable energy wants to use a lot of biomass for electricity generation. The biofuels wants to use the same biomass for fuel generation, which is so expensive that will increase the subsidies. And the National Biomass Strategy has way valued the biomass at such a value that cannot be used either for biofuels or for renewable energy. And where do we go? A lot of it is just wasted money. I used to joke that when Pemandu says job creation in others, it is, as Dr. Wong mentioned, it's job creation at the cabinet level, not for the rakyat. And when Prime Minister says rakyat didahulukan, in actual fact, I think a lot of it be rakyat dipedulikan, or somebody said should be tidak dipedulikan. Now, giving brief, if nearly 4.8 million households in the country, which at even 4% per household, adds up to about 60% of the national population, need real money to make ends meet, what does it say of the government's effectiveness in raising the living standards of the population? This is, as you say, discretionary expenditure spent just to buy votes. It is not going to the people who need it. The same thing goes on other subsidies, whether it's electricity subsidies or petroleum subsidies. By the way, I'm ex-Tenaga National, and I know we had 6 to 8 people do changing of the bulbs in the past, but not anymore. Now, efficiency is what is important, and I think it's not a racial composition in the cabinet or in the parliament. It is their commitment to the rakyat, the roles and responsibilities that they have. And I'd just like to quote a little bit from the old Sunscreen song. We must face some inalienable realities. One is when we were young, the politicians were noble, prices were low, and children listened to their parents. Today, politicians philander, prices are high, and children don't listen to their parents anymore. I think the parliament, cabinet members have to learn that they have to listen to the rakyat, because the rakyat that voted them in and the rakyat can vote them out. Unfortunately, I think the group here is like the converted talking to the converted is not going to change the situation or enhance the awareness. I hope the rest of the population who is not committed and not aware is made aware of the realities of what political shenanigans happen in this country. Thank you.
My name is Ramananda. I am with an NGO, I'm with ProCAN, but I will speak as a private individual. This has been a very interesting evening, and it's interesting for all the wrong reasons. It's amusing, it's entertaining, because it's a perfect case history of how not to do things. It's the kind of thing that we do in corporate training. We say, you know, we show you this is how a bad company does things, and then you tell us why it's bad. So it's quite depressing sitting here listening to all this stuff, because it's not bad things we want to hear. What we want to hear is good things. Now, I've spent 30 years in the corporate world. I've worked in several multinationals. And when we talk about the kinds of things that we talked about tonight, when we talk about how many people should you have reporting to one person, the word you talk, I mean, you use terms like span of control. It's very important. You talk about span of control and you say, what research has been done? And you say, Harvard Business Review, they did this research. Yale, they did this research. University of Manchester, they did this research. And then you say, you know, the number they talk about is 15 to 20. I've done a lot of reorganization, I've done change management. So you talk in terms of span of control and you say, how's the CEO going to be held accountable? I mean, accountability is very good. And so, Mr. Liew, you spoke about question time in the British Parliament, and you talked about how the British Prime Minister responded to so many questions. And I think you said 26 questions in 30 minutes. And I'm used to that too. You know, you have to have very sharp responses. You have to have a good team of people to be able to answer like that. Now, when I hear you know, about this type of discussion, I go, okay, in the corporate world, we have all these debates. You know, people talk about, if you have a president, should you also have a CEO? Now, you have a CEO, why do you need a COO? You know, these are the questions people are asking. Everybody's saying we need to downsize because, look, we've got to talk efficiency, we've got to talk accountability. And then, you know, we hear about, oh, we didn't even do reshuffle. It wasn't even a reshuffle, it was an expansion. So it's really job creation. And so if this happened in a corporation, you just imagine you go to General Electric, I don't want to say Petronas, you know, but let's talk about the really big companies. Let's talk about Citibank, let's talk about General Electric. Can you imagine going to the board? I mean, can you imagine going to, you know, the annual general meeting and you hear, wow, other people are going, you know, from 20 to 15 to 10, and we're going from, I don't know, you know, it was 13 in the beginning, and now we are, what, 35? And then we hear in the Prime Minister's department itself, we have 10. Oh my goodness, what's going on? So it's pretty depressing to hear this. And in the corporate world, again, in all the kind of downsizing that we do, we talk about double hatting. So you want to go and, you know, tell your shareholders a good story. You say, now we have 2 departments under 1 person, where we used to have 2 persons and 2 departments. We don't hear about double hatting. So if you think in terms of good governance, what we have is an example of how not to do things. That's what this is. And for that reason, it's pretty depressing, I have to say. So I don't know what this, you know, where this goes. I'm a little distressed to hear. I mean, I always think of Gerakan as a not a race-based party. It's kind of odd to hear. You know, it's a good thing because now we have more Chinese, blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, who cares, you know? So I must say I'm a little disappointed. And also, yeah, okay, we talk about Sri Lanka. All right, you know, there are 67 members in cabinet. Or whatever the right number was, but it was rather large. Well, because that's kind of one of the worst places to be right now. And so I think this is, again, I'm not trying to be demeaning or anything like that. I'm just saying, we have to find all these excuses for our government today, because we really don't want to be embarrassed. We want to find excuses for them, because, look, it's really embarrassing to go to meetings in other countries and say, you're from Malaysia, well, the country that has, keeps growing your cabinet, and then you actually have so many GLCs. What, 32% of the companies in this country are GLCs? I mean, it's just a ridiculous situation. So, I guess my question is, what's next? Are we going to keep, setting these great new standards of how not to be, how to be examples of poor governance? Or what's the answer? I mean, we keep talking about these horrible things. So I feel a little depressed at the end of this meeting. And my question is, what can we do about it? I mean, is anybody listening? Thank you.
I'll just get the speakers to respond to that question in the end. Juno, would you like to respond?
Thanks for the comments. Both comments, I value both comments very much. I think perhaps you have been to the best of private sector. Not every private sector will at your level. Perhaps you have been to the best of private sector and you have seen in Malaysian government the worst of government. Usually it's in between. But anyhow, I feel that in the short term, the answer is Najib has to act. In the short term, Najib has to act. In the long term, of course, we hope for a change of government, but if there is a change of government, people from Pakatan side must also recognize that these are what they call these are demands for a modern government. These are demands for good government, and therefore, when Pakatan takes over, all this that we say today must not repeat itself. And that is, of course, we have to think of ways to avoid repeating history. I think one short term, apart from appointing younger upper ministers, younger moderate upper ministers from professional backgrounds, whom I know a few, I know that in this term they do have some. I think the other thing that Najib can really consider is to have a two-tier cabinet. The UK has two-tier cabinet. That means only the cabinet has only about 20 ministers, senior ministers. But they have another 70 people who are what they call junior minister. They call in UK, if you are at the cabinet level, you are called a secretary. But you are not in the cabinet, then you are called a minister. In Australia, there's no name difference, but there are two-tier arrangement where only some ministers attend the cabinet meeting, which is about 19. So I think about 19 people attend the cabinet meeting. The rest are ministers, but they do not attend cabinet meeting. They report to a senior minister in the cabinet. Australia has about 40 people in total. We'll have about 57, 58, or 60 people in total. 62 in total now. 62 people in total, front bench. Australia has about less than 40 people in the front bench. I think Australia's arrangement is quite interesting. There are about 20 ministers at the cabinet level, plus minus, but there are only about 16 departments, which is what the equivalent of a ministry here. For instance, foreign affairs and trade is actually one department serving two ministers, two senior ministers. So you have the minister for trade and you have the minister for foreign affairs, but they are both served by one department.
I think that's New Zealand.
Australia as well. And in Australia, I studied Australia so that I'm quite familiar with the system. And in Australia, one parliamentary committee oversees two departments. So there will be, say for instance, a security committee. That committee will oversee two ministries. So they have 8 standing parliamentary committee overseeing about 16 departments. And this is the arrangement in Australia, which I think we can emulate. We can have, say, about 7 or 8 parliamentary committees overseeing between our ministries, and our ministry we can have less ministry, so that they can coordinate and consolidate their work. We have 3 ministries dealing with science, innovation, technology, and then you see an innovation what they call agency in the Prime Minister Department. These are things that is not necessary. But of course it's depressing because no one wants to lead. No one is prepared to say that let's make a difference. And I think the buck stops at the Prime Minister's stops in front of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has to act. The Prime Minister has to govern. The Prime Minister cannot be just be a showman. And I think we expect Najib to do so. We expect Najib to lead. And therefore, people are hoping for at least a new finance minister. People are hoping for him to go. And all this didn't happen. And I think he is more disappointed now. Thank you.
Back to your questions, I think what is going to next after the cabinet reshuffle? I would expect another reshuffle, in fact, because as you say that, as I say that this is an expansion and it's not a reshuffle, and I would expect the major reshuffling, really just like YB said, I really hope that you can hear also. There will be more Prime Minister can come in and drop all these non-performance ministers. Yes, a big reshuffling is required for the shape of the future of the countries. And I'm really looking forward that a major reshuffling by putting up all the KPIs for the ministers as you really work and operate, manage like corporate level, just like you have CEO, COO, CFO and all this group of people, all these type of leaders, put all the key performance indicators for all the ministers, who can perform, who cannot perform, all is being transparent. This will be the, we are looking forward on this type of the administrative in the future's reshuffling. So that's the reason why, as I say that for today, we only can, since that decision is already made, yes, criticize is already made, and then a lot of people say weaknesses of the government. But then I will try to look at the more positive perspective, that the 3 additional ministers, let them perform and let them try to do their jobs and try to get the country moving forwards. Thank you.
Thanks. I think really the question here, what Chin Tong suggested about having 2-tier cabinet, if we look at the deputy minister now, it is actually playing that role. It's just another title. The question here is that we need to think about how big the front bench should be, both in absolute size and also in its relative size to the parliament. And if you really want to feel a bit better, then what I can tell you is that it's not that bad because Sri Lanka 67 actually covered the deputy as well. And this is not the worst in Malaysia. I remember at least in 2004 when Abdullah came in, at that time, other than deputy minister, you actually have a parliamentary secretary, if you still remember, that's junior minister. And the total number was 75. Now, what does it mean? In 2004, every 1 out of 3 EMMP can have an executive job. Today is 2 out of 5. In absolute number, we are smaller, but the relative percentage will be higher. So really, what we need to do is to actually go back and say, no job should be created for the sake of appeasing politicians. They should create jobs for ordinary citizens, not for themselves. And if you have to create so many jobs, as what Chin Tong said, is that practically eventually become ministry contract giver, right, main con, then we really have a problem. And I do not know how you can actually make Najib do something in the short term. You see, one of the ways for those things to happen in a normal country is that you have midterm elections. Midterm elections could come in the form of local government elections. It could come in the form of state or provincial elections if they are not happening at the same time. But this country, after 1959, basically has simultaneous elections for most of the states. So the only midterm election we have to teach the government a lesson is only by-election. And that's quite bad. Basically, you hope someone will be called back to heaven or somewhere before you can have a chance to, to tell the government and say, you're not doing a good job. And it's really bad because the entire system is so centralized. Practically, you can't sack anyone now. For example, you can't sack Tengku Anand without sacking the federal government. As much as you say, if you have a state government in Kuala Lumpur, you can actually sack Tengku Anand by sacking the state government. But you can't. Practically, he is the one who runs federal territory, and you can't do anything because in name it's called federal territory, but I would say in practice, in essence, it's federal colony. I mean, that's the reason why the Americans fought against the British 200 years ago. Taxation without representation. And they rejected that. They say, no taxation without representation. But if you live in KL, you basically cannot determine your assessment rate. You cannot do anything. There's not even a pretense of even politically appointees as local councillor. DBKL does not have anything as such. And Putrajaya and Labuan are worse. They are called Putrajaya Corporation. Labuan Corporation. That sounds like North Borneo Company. Now, coming back to this, what I know, Rama, unfortunately I know how things can be worse. I don't know how things can be better. And I can warn you in advance. BM MPs have this expectation to be appointed. At the moment, the percentage is 40%. During Abdullah times, it's 30%. Now, what does it mean? If you're going to have a bigger parliament, expect a bigger cabinet. Simple as that. This is the true fact before us. We need to stop making decisions, taking things for granted, accepting whatever existing practices as having its rationale in some way. No, they don't, unfortunately, most of the time. So if you really do not want to have a bigger cabinet, you must not have a bigger parliament. It comes to the point we need to draw a line that you simply can't have too many people from the parliament to sit in your cabinet. And we're not talking about cabinet in the restricted sense, but in the abuse sense. We can't have too many people on government payrolls from the parliament in the front bench. That's mean whatever title you give them, you change the title from Deputy Minister to Minister of State, you change it to, you call back Parliamentary Secretary, it's the same thing. We need to draw the line. Now, if you ever wonder, what we suffer at the federal level did not happen at the state level. Why? There's actually a limit of EXCO that you can appoint under every state's constitution. But really, we need to come back now. The question here is that no job should be created without any reason, just to please the party. I'm not disappointed that much that you, Professor, you talked about a more Chinese minister. I don't have much expectation of that part, sorry. but I think what is quite bad is the fact that we can't demand that for every minister added that you must drop someone. It comes to the point people need to do that, draw a line and say stop. It shouldn't just go on that way. And we need a proper debate on all those things. If there is hope, I think the hope is actually about media. Because that's exactly how the British system works. you recall what I think it was Ellen would say that yonder, over there, he pointed to the press gallery and said, that's the fourth estate, that's more powerful than the other trees. Because it's the media who get the message out that the public becomes informed and becoming critical. So if you really can go beyond what you say, that go beyond the converted, really the job would be on the media. Thank you.
I think because of time, we can take 2 more questions from the floor. Are there any questions from members of the media?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lionel. I'm from Suwannayana. Well, first of all, I think I will speak for all present here when I say that Liew Chin Tong made a splendid, a great analysis of the structural weaknesses existing in our cabinet today. That is got to be addressed. As long as these structural weaknesses are not addressed, I can easily say that this cabinet will never be elected, no matter how much they try. This is very important, no? And I think our brother friend here, who's got the Ma in the cabinet, I think he should take note of all these points spoken by Liew here and bring it up to the cabinet level, so that the structural weaknesses got to be addressed. As long as this is not done, I can say clearly the cabinet is not effective. And I can also say that what Liew has pointed out shows a lot of wastages taking place. Wastages are taking place. Money being spent simply at whims and fancies of the Prime Minister, and that is a great loss to the Rakyat. The Rakyat are suffering, prices are going up. So many things, and they're talking about bringing up the GST and so on. So the Rakyat is going to suffer more and more, even though bill has been given out just to win the support. So prices are going up, and the Ryats are suffering. While the cabinet, the guys in charge there, they are having a great time. And of course, they are always able to justify whatever they do. That is clear to all of us. We have been senior members here, senior staffs here, or senior citizens here. I'm sure they have lived long enough not to be blind to what's going on in this country.
Mr. Najib, other than your comment, do you have a
That's my comment, and I hope that this matter will be brought up by our brother and friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? The gentleman in front, yeah.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. From the whole discussion, as much as I appreciate the thought from all the panelists, I wonder, because for the paradigm of our discussion, we are focusing on, it's very good, but now we are focusing on one side of the discussion in which we are talking about improving our representative democracy, in improving the structure of our parliamentary system, improving the scrutiny within our parliamentary system and government structure. What is, I refer this question maybe to Liew Chin Tong or Huat. What is our strategy of public engagement in which we need to improve our participatory democracy? Because I think as much as we have discussed this very good issue, the information does not deliver to the mass of population throughout Malaysia. Of course, the majority of the voters are Malays. They don't even care about this cabinet reshuffle. But parliament in which the parliamentarian will elect the cabinet, elect their prime ministers, and end up with the underperformance cabinet ministers. So, what are the strategies of public engagement to improve our participatory democracy, in which the rakyat and their MPs or the rakyat directly to the cabinet ministers has a bridge in which the information can be pushed and pressured as much by the NGOs or civil society. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Witeki and I'm a student. And please forgive me for being straightforward. It's a very simple question. After the cabinet expansion, do you think the ministry be more effective or less effective? Yes or no, more or less? Thank you.
I think we can end with these questions. And because of time, we won't be, we don't have enough time to allow our panelists to wrap up. So I would just ask you to give your comments, and this will be the last round. I think I'll start with Dr. Wong.
Thank you. Now, the answer to your question is no. With more people doing their job, the same jobs, you're actually getting less efficient and effective. To the important question, how do we engage this? I think there's no other way getting more people realize what's going on and what's happening. I thank Repsa and Islamic China Assembly for organizing this talk, because that, after a hoo-ha in the first round of the meeting, you don't actually see people going deeper. And what we need to do is to take this out from Chinese Assembly Hall. We need to take this to Kampong Baru, to Puchong, and to Kuala Selangor, to Sabah, to Sarawak, to everywhere. And get people to realize and say, this is your money. And jobs are being created for politicians in your name, not for you. Really, there's no other way. I mean, as I say that, our hope is that the media will take it further, will stir it up, but eventually it comes down to this. People need to see they are paying the price. And I think what is important about middle class participation in politics has seen a rise since 2006 or so. We actually need more participation from the corporate sector. I think people need to dismiss all this and say, no, having more ministers is bad. Why? For at least one reason. You create more gatekeepers. And that's actually opportunities for you to ask for bribery. Because unnecessarily you're creating new jobs for people to become either medium-sized Napoleon or big Napoleon in their own field. We don't really need a big government in those sense. What we need is rationalizing the size of government. I think what Rama pointed out just now is very useful. But what we need is to destroy the legitimacy of a bloated government. When things become illegitimate, then we will go far. So we need more people like Rama from the corporate sector, spreading it. Doesn't matter, it doesn't translate into action immediately, but soon enough everyone knows this is stupid. And no one dare to come out and say, no, this is actually good because we have more ministers. Why do we need more ministers when you don't have more jobs to do? Thank you.
Thank you. To answer the second question, I say it's not going to be effective, and my speech is geared towards that. To answer your question, I think it's very interesting that you pointed out the distinction between representative democracy and participatory democracy. I think if you improve the quality of representative democracy, it may also help the participatory part. Of course, knowing the current situation, knowing what we are going through, of course, if we need to push for electoral reform, we need to push for media reform, we need to discredit whatever mass media which is not reporting the truth. I think all this, we have to do all this. Why are we doing this? I feel that there's always two parts to it. Very often we are concerned that our message has not reached those we think that should know. But somehow, sometimes we also don't look at our message, whether this message is really the message that is solid, that actually can bring transformative change when this message is conveyed. So I think there's always two roles, two parts of it. Yes, we need to broaden the reach, and we need to do a lot more to broaden the reach. But we also need to deepen the understanding. So the think tanks and all this are doing the work of deepening understanding. And I think that is also very important. A lot of issues that we talk about need a new look. We need to look at the economy differently. We need to think about things differently. And I value the effort of all of you who are here, because we are here together to deepen our understanding. And of course, some of us, after we understand more, we decided that we want to do the reshuffle, but we can still do that. I feel that very often people have this understanding that, oh, we have to reach out to the kampong because the kampong, the rural area decides the nation. In a way, it's true, but on another hand, I always remember this in 1999, when the media was even worse at the time, when there was no Malaysian insider, no Malaysian TV, nothing. It was the university students, Malay university students, who photocopy what they downloaded from the internet. And then, mind you, at that time, 1999, internet penetration was not so widespread. It was the university students, because they were committed, they downloaded it, whatever news that they read, whatever what's the guy at Sabri, the Reformasi Diary? Sorry? Sabri Zain, yeah, whatever these people wrote, whatever they got from the internet, they downloaded it, they photocopied it, they carried it back to the kampong over weekend to distribute it. So, my point is that we still have to do more in the urban areas, because many Malaysians, especially Malays, are now living in urban areas. The younger generation still have a role to play, even in the urban areas, and from here there can be a bridge back to the kampong, back to the rural area, when the media is not on our side.
Okay, after listening to the whole session here, and then all the comments that I received from the participants, one thing I have to say, our government really weak in reach out. I think not only reach out to all the people, I think first thing first have to reach out to all the MP first, the member of parliament. Because there's now a lot of issues raised by Chin Tong here. In fact, I have the answers. So that's why I would like to take these opportunities that we can explain to you. The government is not so good, but not also that bad that you all mentioned. So that's why I would like to, for example, Chin Tong say there's a discretion money. I really do not know what it means on discretion money that we allocated to all the ministers. I remember when I was the second as the Gerakan Youth, I used to one of the sort of assistant of the Tan Sri Osukut, and then normally Tan Sri will call us out, hey, no, come up, and then we have discussions in the midnight and all this. When I was there in the midnight, 1 o'clock or in the morning and 2 o'clock in the morning, then I saw his table on the table with all the claims that he made. I say, as a minister, you also have to submit claim one. You have to fill out the claim forms and all this. I thought it's a simple claim form or with the receipts only. No, it's full with all the justifications. This dinner lah, with who lah, participants' names lah, why you are there lah, and all this. I said, wow, you are a minister, you also have to do that expenses like corporate life. He said, yes, have to. Or else, sometimes KSU, they can refuse to sign. KSU is Ketua Setiausaha Usaha. If they don't agree with the ministers, they refuse to sign. Because a lot of people say, cannot be like KSU should be scared of the minister. For your information, KSU is report to KSN. Ketua Setiausaha Negara, and they have their own responsibility not to sign the minister's claim also. It's certain extent, but where is it, to what extent, I really don't know, but it happens, it happens. Second is, we talk about the EPU and Pemandu. EPU is Economic Policies Unit. It's mainly to talk about the panel of the members is not many, but they are mainly meet up to discuss the policies of the economy of the country, that's all. Pemandu is a transformations unit, which are coming up, led by the Idris, and then to all these transformations activities being carried out. Recently, I think you can see GTP, ETP, Government Transformation Program, Economic Transformation Program, and then in fact they are trying to engage the public. They put up in the PWTCs, put up with all the results, the information they have. First thing, they invite all the MP first round. Second, only all the government servants. Third round, all the rakyat people were involved. All this is activities we carry out by Pemandu. But I really can't see the overlapping from Pemandu and EPU. Come back to UCAS. UCAS is Unit Kerja Sama Awam Swasta. Yes, this unit been just recently been created out. Why it been created out? That one I'm quite clear. Because for example, in my kawasan, Sentul, there's a lot of PPR unit, the low cost unit and all this. It's already more than 10 years, 20 years. It's not well maintained. Then the government is trying to reduce the cost. That's why they come out with a UCAS. UCAS means the swasta or the private sector have to come up with the money or the budgets to build the houses or the apartments or the flat first. They have to build. After build, they move the rest of the PPR units owner to the new houses. Then the rest they can sell. So government do not come out with a single sense on this program. So this is one of the activities we carry out. And of course, I'm not going to explain Pampu and all this. There's a lot of activities also. One thing is correct is the National Economic Councils which they are meeting up in every Monday. But I don't agree that Cabinet is a rubber stamp because every Wednesday there's a meeting. Cabinet is meeting, isn't it? I can tell you, my president on board as ministers, every Tuesday night, he have to suffer. He have to read one very thick of documents, sent to all the ministers. They have to read first for the cabinet's meeting. We have been called up because we are in the party gerakan. You try to assign, Dominic, you try to understand this situation. You try to assign to all respective the Gerakan's members who is helping him at this moment to read through some of the papers and all this, try to brief him and all this. And from throughout the whole process, I think nothing is rubber stamp. If you agree, you agree. If you don't agree, you just speak out. You speak out. Just happened, I happened to be in the cabinet meetings a few times when during the Tan Sri Kosukun's times. And then I can see that we are really not they are cabinet minister, I'm not a minister. So they are really go through every minutes, every matter, every issue, single issue, go through properly. But even though they don't have much time, I don't say they are perfect. There are definitely a lot of weaknesses. And then as I say, every Wednesday they really go through all this. So in my expectation, if you ask me personally, I really want this government or this country be managed by experts. Because not all the politicians is experts, including me. Sometimes we ask the politicians to lead the Ministry of Education, but they do not know about education. You ask the politician to lead the Ministry of Health, but you do not know anything about the health. Then it is very, quite dangerous. But then I can see, last time, I think during Mahathir's time, he engaged the Vice Chancellors of the USM as the Minister of Education. But I can't see the result also. So, no matter how, I would say that we have to looking forward, try to get a good cabinet ministers, let them time to perform, and then put in more transparency long as the good for the country, we will fully support. Thank you very much.